hello, hi. My name's Kate Colson. I've been asked to introduce you all to these three fine folks. I first want to thank LMC Media for recording this and editing this. I think we might need a few re-edits. I've lived in the village since 1998. My son grew up here, went to all of the Village of Mamaroneck and Town of Mamaroneck schools. I've only lived in two places since I've been here. I lived in Monroe for 20 years, and I recently moved to still the village, but in another town in Hawthorne Gardens on Stewart Avenue. And I've been asked, I'm honored to be introducing you to these folks. I think some of you may know them well, but I think, and many of you have been part of the village for a very long time. So the purpose is to really get to know the three of you, share your background, interest, and reasons why you're running. So we'll do a structured, we'll have each of you introduce yourselves as individuals, and then we'll touch upon two general areas, namely, why are you running for trustee? You all are, of course, running unopposed. Nonetheless, we think this is a great opportunity to introduce you all to the folks who live here, if they don't already know you. You're running unopposed, but this is a very, very important role. You'll be joining Nora, Lucas, and Sharon on the board, Sharon the Mayor, Torres. So we'll talk to each of you individually, get to know you a little bit personally, and then I'll be asking you questions again about why are you running for trustee, and then ultimately what you hope to accomplish in the time period, at least for your first tenure as trustee. So Ellen, can we get started with you?
Sure.
Ellen Silver, you've lived here since 2006, I understand, with your family, and you've served in a variety of roles, right, in the village and in municipal and civic positions. So why don't you get started and kick things off to
Great,
share.
and thank you, Kate, for being here today and doing this with us.
I'm honored to be doing it.
Yeah, so just going way back, originally from Queens, New York, grew up there, and then lived in the city after college. And we had two kids in the city, and it felt time to sort of maybe move out before my son started kindergarten. And we really just kind of like took our time and visited many Sound Shore communities, many river towns. And when we landed in Mamaroneck, we just knew this was the place for us. We just fell in love, love at first sight. And it's been a great run here. As I said, we moved in 2006. I have a son who's 23. A daughter is 20. They went through the Mamaroneck schools, and my professional background is as a banker, a corporate and private banker, and retired a number of years ago and just got very involved with the community through the schools first, and then chaired the Committee for the Environment for 5 years, and that kind of really sort of brought me into Village Matters.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to share about yourself? We can always get back to more details later through the discussion.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be running. A lot of people are questioning, "You're sure you want to do this?" But I just feel like with my professional background and my experience, I just feel like I can give a lot. I really do love this community, and I feel like we made a good choice when we kind of shopped around towns, and I just want to give back.
Yeah, I love that between the three of you, two of you got your start here, one of you has never left, one of you has come back, and then we have someone who's still relatively new to the community but loves it.
Well, 18 years, I don't know how new that is, but...
Yeah, relatively.
Relatively, I guess, right. Not a lifer.
So you've also been chair of the Climate Smart Committee Task Force, right?
Yeah, so when I was chair of the Committee for the Environment, we learned about a New York State program called the Climate Smart Communities program, and we went before the board. We passed a resolution to form this task force, and Dan sits on the task force with me. Okay. We've done a lot of great work, actually earned $190,000 in grants for the village through that task force, so very proud of that work.
Okay, and you've also been on the boards of Harbor Island Conservancy and Orienta Point Association, right?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, so you have not been a wallflower since you've been here at all, so, okay.
No, I tend to get involved.
Okay. All right, thanks, Ellen.
Oh, absolutely.
So Dan, I mentioned that I think you started out your life here, and you recently had you're about to have a pretty important milestone tonight. You want to share with us again about your history here?
So, thanks, Kate. I did grow up here and went through the school system and graduated from Mamaroneck High School. Tonight is our 50th high school reunion, which is a staggering number to me, but nevertheless, after college, I moved to Los Angeles for about 5 years and worked in the music industry and the video industry out there, and then came back where I ran into my wife, who I knew from high school then, but we later got married. I came back to
her name is Janice?
Janice.
And what's your husband's name?
Jonathan.
Jonathan, okay.
And we moved to Pelham, and we raised 3 kids there. I was on the volunteer firefighter department down there. No one more surprised than myself to be doing that. And after my youngest graduated from high school in Pelham, we decided to downsize. We had an opportunity to move back. I love this village. It's beautiful. I'm a boater, and I like the water. And it just it's been a good move. And so I really am looking forward to, participate as a chairperson. I was on the committee for the environment with Ellen, and then became the chairperson of that committee this year. And we've been doing some phenomenal stuff, including a greenway, which is a linear park that we're in concept now, but going from Rockland Avenue, eventually along the Sheldrake, and up through the Mamaroneck River to 95. It will take a little while to make happen. Also, along with Ellen, we raised this, $190,000, which we have to use on energy-saving matters. So we're in the process of buying an electric vehicle for the village, researching solar for the village properties, and a number of other initiatives. So quite proud of that as well. And working with Ellen has been, excellent. We're a good team and good partners.
Thank you, Jan.
I'm feeling the love here. So you also have been chairperson for the, you worked with you're volunteering with the National Kidney Foundation, is that right?
Yes. I wasn't going to talk about it, but I had a kidney transplant about 5 years ago.
Wow.
And I was very, very lucky to get a kidney. I was doing dialysis training to do it at home, and somebody that I know, casually, but offered the kidney, and we were a match. And I was so moved, and I felt it was important to become a peer mentor for the National Kidney Foundation to, help others who are either on dialysis looking for a kidney for a transplant, because it is an overwhelming process. So I share my experience with people that are looking for a transplant.
That's fabulous, and I know both the donor and the recipient go through a lot, and there's a pretty intensive psych review and battery, and I've worked with several friends who work with UNOS or Live On, the organization that does that liaison. So good, thank you for giving back.
Thanks.
So last but not least, Maria Derose, you've been a lifer, so to speak. So let's hear a little bit about you, and then we'll start talking a little bit about why you each want to run as trustee.
Thank you, Kate. I am a lifelong resident of the Village of Mamaroneck. I grew up on Grand Street in the Washingtonville section and moved with my family to Shore Acres. The parking was the issue. My dad had his own business and we needed more parking, and it's still an issue in that neighborhood. 40-something years later. But so we moved. I'm still in Shore Acres in the house that my parents bought 48 years ago. I met my late husband Sal here. We met at Harbor Island. We raised our children here. His family still has a business here. So I have deep roots to the community. And it's my home, and I can't imagine living anyplace else. I have served as the chairperson of the Mayor's Ad Hoc Parking Committee. About 10
Parking
years
is
ago.
still
Parking
near and dear to your heart in all sorts of ways, right?
Parking is still an issue, but that was under Mayor Rosenblum. He compiled a task force to look at the parking issues, and I served as the chairperson of that. I was also on the Flood Mitigation Committee for 6 years. And I was on ethics twice. Most recently, I was on the ethics committee up until February, when I was threw my hat in the ring and received a nomination. That's when I had to leave that committee. So I think between my life experience, between living here and the committees I've served on, I have a really unique perspective into what is going on in the village, and understand the issues that are still going on in the village after all these years.
Yeah. How long does one serve on the ethics committee? Is it the same tenure as the other village committees, or?
The ethics committee is 2 years.
2 years, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the same.
Yeah.
It's 2-year appointment.
Yeah, and I was on the village arts committee for 2 tenures, and so that was right when there was a change in the village manager, the past village manager assumed that role. So, yeah, it's hard work to be on a committee, village committee. I mean, it's fun.
Rewarding.
It's rewarding, it's hard work, you really get to know how this village ticks. So, we'll thank each of you for a little bit of a mini bio. Why don't we jump in and talk about why you are running, not want to run, you're clearly running. Want to run is a little bit late, you already threw your hat in the ring. Why do you want to, why are you running for trustee? And we'll talk a little bit about how you think you can make a difference.
I'm running because I want to be part of the solution. We have the same issues that have been plaguing this village for many, many years. We're just starting, you know, to turn the corner. Our new mayor has been working diligently to do things on flooding, and it's, you know, I really want to support her with that. She's made more progress in these last, you know, few months that she's been mayor than previous administrations had made before her. We're no longer sitting on our, you know, on our hands waiting for the Army Corps to come in and save us. We're actually getting some, we're applying for grants, we're going to start projects, we have actual dates, we have actual things that are going on. I think it's really important to keep on top of that.
Sorry to interrupt, but I mean, it's amazing. She's not even been in the role a year yet.
Right.
I mean, it's incredible how much we've gotten done.
Right. And, you know, there's so much contention on the board. There has been. Right now we have 3 trustees who just are following their own personal agenda. I'm an unaffiliated, registered as an unaffiliated voter. I believe that, you know, everybody's voice in this village matters. I see you, I hear you, I want to work with you. It's all about collaboration and compromise. And at the end of the day, no matter what area of the village you call home, whether it be Mamaroneck or the Flats or Harbor Heights, we're all one village, and what happens here affects us all. And we need to work together to solve it without any hidden agendas, without any personal agendas. Transparency is so important. We have, you know, a lack of transparency on the board right now amongst certain members, and we need to change that culture. We need to be more professional, more civilized, more respectful, and that's why I want to run, to bring all that back to my neighbors.
Okay, thanks, Maria. Dan, why don't you go? You're next in line. Why are you running?
So as a member of the Committee for the Environment, and then specifically as a chairperson, I began to get an inkling of how dysfunctional village government was, and it just moves at a glacial pace, which that may just be the nature of government. But I began to see the self-interest of the former village manager, and I believe that the former mayor kind of stacked the board with people who were subscribed to his agenda. Mm-hmm. And there was a point that really turned it for me, which is when the former village manager did an email blast talking about why he was going to quit if he didn't have new negotiations, meanwhile, of his contract. And he had a year left on his contract. And so then the board went into a closed session and ended up giving him a new contract, so 4 more years plus the 1 year he had. He was given a raise, so he's the most expensive, he has the highest salary of, I think, any village manager in the county of Westchester. And he was able to keep a second full-time job in New Jersey. So I just thought that this was, you know, this just broke the camel's back, so to speak.
So to some degree, this speaks to the issue that Maria raised regarding transparency, right? I mean, this
Correct.
sounds like a pretty clear lack of transparency and a really foundational decision for the village.
Correct.
Okay.
And I felt that the 3 members that we're replacing and the former mayor all had their own agenda, and they weren't really listening to a lot of the residents. For whatever reason, I don't know what that is, but there's been a lot of contentious behavior and discussions on the board. If anyone just views or goes to a meeting, it's just constant infighting, and it's just time for a change. We're a small village. We basically, not across the board, but want the same things. We want a thriving village that, although the flooding may never go away, at least it's mediated, and that we, can just keep this village, going and maintain its, beauty. And, the harbor is just a gem, and, the Parks Department, all the departments work hard, but I think it's time, for a change.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I do think the village is in a really pivotal position where we want to retain what makes us feel like a village. We want to retain as much of the natural beauty that we are in the midst of. We were so lucky. Yet we do have some development challenges we have to address, and finding that sweet spot is something I think a lot of people look to the board to resolve and deal with that, working with the mayor.
Preserve the character of the village.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So thanks, Dan.
You're
Ellen, again, why are we seeing you sitting in this seat right now?
I think it really boils down to the fact that I really love this community, and I really care about the community. And I just, as Dan said, when you chair a village board, you get really drawn in, and you get to know the players. I work with village officials and met people across all village departments. And having a corporate background, I was always just sort of amazed at some of the lack of accountability. You send an email, and then you send a follow-up email, and then you send a third follow-up. And I just, and I guess to pile on Dan's point about, a village manager 1 year before his term is up asking for a 4-year contract, I just have never seen anything like that. And I just feel like we need to be a little more disciplined in how we run the village. Having a banking background, I have an MBA in finance. I think I could bring that financial discipline. I run our household finances. It just amazes me that we don't even have a capital budget. I mean, people just come before the board and like, hey, I need this new truck, I need this. We need a capital budget. We have to have a budget that's aligned with our priorities. It just seems very basic to me, and I feel like I could really help to get that done.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of me really wanting to sort of help our community. It's where I live. It's where I'm going to live for a long, long time. I'm hoping one day my kids will come back here. And
if they can afford it, right? I mean, that's what we're facing, the reality of our own children.
Very much a
may
reality.
not be able to come back and live where they grew up.
Very much a reality. And look, obviously there's issues facing our village. Some of these issues date back decades, but I come from a place of I just think this is a great place to live. When my husband and I were kind of, spending time in all these towns, and we're both very analytical people, so we didn't make a quick decision. We spent months really, looking around. I feel like we made a great decision. I feel like, to your point, like every time I drive down Fenimore Road and I just see that view of the harbor, I'm just so happy to be living here. And I want to give back. I retired many years ago from my profession, and I think this is really the best use of my time right now and my skills and my experience. And I really do think that, I tend to be a consensus builder. I listen, I take in information, I do the work, and I'm excited to really try to help the village address some of the issues that we have right now.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. I mean, you all are almost like the Rainbow Coalition in some sense. I think you each bring unique talents and skills and background, but what seems to be clear among the three of you is a clear love for the village and wanting to give back and leveraging your life experience to do exactly that. So, and that's what I think everyone looks for in civil government and in local or federal leadership, as we're looking at a federal election this year as well. So I think all three of you have touched a little bit on this, but again, in terms of concrete things you hope to achieve as a trustee when you're in the position, which will be very soon. I mean, a few months away are going to be like a blink of an eye. What do you think you uniquely have to offer that you think you would use in the role, and maybe get a little bit into concrete things? I have some quotables from you that I think are really very compelling, but let's hear straight from you. Maybe I think you've touched upon it, what you hope to contribute with your financial background.
Sure, and I could expand on that.
Okay, go ahead.
I definitely know what the big issues of the day are in this village. I think we all know that it's flooding, congestion, overdevelopment, the traffic issues. I mean, what happened on Mamaroneck Avenue at MAS School should have never happened. I mean, that's just completely tragic, and I'm glad the village is taking the measures with the county to sort of resolve that, but it just should have never happened, and very sad, sad thing for our village. And but I think that I'm known to be a pragmatic problem solver, whether it's in my day-to-day life with my family or in my professional life. And I think that there's a lot of issues that people could toss around. And I'll give you one example where we're kind of been doing this listening tour, going to all the village boards, listening to people, listening to the issues of the committees. And one thing I just want to say is I'm always so impressed with the people that we have volunteering on our boards. They're passionate, they're smart, they're hardworking, and so I'm really grateful for that. But we were at the tree committee, and there was this whole long conversation about, I guess there are some trees that it's not clear if it's on village property or private property. I'm like, well, maybe we could just tag them, like put a little tag on. And I was like, oh. So I think that's kind of like where I come from on some things, like just the small,
like 19th century
solutions.
Too. This is not like high-tech AI-generated idea.
The solutions, right, exactly. Kind of like just practical thinking. But yeah, I do think that my financial background will come in handy. I know how to read budgets and contracts, and just to touch on the hunch a lot, I think at the core of that project was a faulty RFP. And I think that I would have been, if I were in office at that time, I think I would have been helpful in coming up with an RFP that really helped get us what we set out to get.
Right.
We know our objectives are, and we should have an RFP that is reflective of those objectives.
Right.
And I don't really think that is what came of it. I think that we were sort of very passive and let others kind of dictate what we were in the end trying to get. And I don't think that's really right for the people of our community. I mean, it's village property. But aside from the things that we talk about all the time, I really have, new initiatives that I love to sort of tackle, and knowing that there's budgetary, constraints all the time. But I think there's some, new things that we could introduce. We all talk about parking, complain about parking, but Dan and I have talked about this a lot. They have this in New Rochelle, they have this in Florida. There's something called Circuit, which is an on-demand, it's an electric shuttle. Mm-hmm. And so if we had that, if everyone has an app on their phone, and now you're going to see a show at the Emlyn, you could park your car at the train station when it's empty at night, call your on-demand shuttle, and go to the Emlyn. I'm not saying that that's going to solve everything, but it's something that we should be looking at. I also think that we all want to take pride in our community. Definitely noticing that there's a lot of litter, there's been graffiti. I really would love to see a beautification committee be formed and have people looking around and say, how can we make it even more beautiful here? And I'll just tell this one little anecdote that when I was chairing the Committee for the Environment, I got an email from a resident saying, our post office looks so bad. It's so dilapidated. Can you do something? And I was like, well, the Committee for the Environment is really about the natural environment, so that's kind of not really in my wheelhouse. But ever since then, every time I drive by that building, I'm like, it looks awful. And so I just think that there are some things that we really should be addressing that just haven't been. I mean, taking a fresh look at everything.
Okay.
We have a village code. The book is about this thick. We don't enforce our codes.
Right.
The only codes we seem to enforce are parking. We all get parking tickets. But there's a lot of other codes that need to get enforced. Okay. So, I know I'm going on, but I think that there's just a lot of things that there's a passion there, and I really want to do a lot.
Right. Okay. No, and I appreciate the notion that I think the kind of work you guys are wanting to take on is demanding. It requires very, very close attention to detail and patience and willingness to some degree slog through the details. So thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm glad you're looking at bringing some new ideas to the table. I'm just going back and forth, if that's okay. I can pick Dan next since he's next, or Dan, why don't we hear from you about any concrete ideas you have?
So for me, I think the village is at a really big crossroads and a real opportunity where the village is in the process of hiring a new village manager who will bring in a new assistant manager. The building department head has just left, And so there'll be a new building department head. There's a new planning commissioner here. So, and with the three of us, there'll be a fresh start. And I think that we can try to work together on initiatives, you know, which we all know, but that we can work together on, that we're not fighting. Nobody, I can speak for everybody. Nobody has an individual agenda. That our agenda is to, you know, make this the best place we can and to work hard at it and do our homework. Traffic safety, flooding, as Ellen said, is utmost. I would like to review the zoning laws just to see about, you know, there seems to be a lot of development, and I know that can't be stopped, but perhaps we can control it a little bit so it you know, fits in with the tenor of the village. And yeah, I just think that it's time. And I ask the residents to be patient, where the village has been going in this direction for a long time, and we're not going to be able to change it overnight.
Right.
It's going to be like turning a battleship, but I believe we're all committed, I am, to making this change. And I look forward to meeting residents and listening to their concerns over the next, you know, campaign month or two, as well as once we're in office. And I think that we will do right by the village.
Good. Thanks. Maria?
Okay, wow, what else is left to say? They've covered everything, but you know, I can remember when I was little, I'd be about 4 years old, and rainstorm, my dad put me on his shoulders and we walked down to what was then Peter and Sons Bakery, and I sat there on my dad's shoulders and watched the boats go across Mamaroneck Avenue from the bakery to the firehouse. Now, it's worse. It's gotten worse. It needs to get better. We're not going to, you know, stop flooding, but we need to do our best to mitigate it. And I'm really just looking forward, you know, to continuing the progress that we're making on that now, getting some projects done. I want the village to be proactive instead of reactive. We shouldn't have to wait for tragedy to strike before we do something. We should have a plan, we should have a long-term plan and be able to follow it. We shouldn't, you know, we need to look at the village, you know, comprehensively. We need to look at all our school crossings and make sure that our children are safe, make sure everyone is safe when they're walking, when they're biking, when they're driving. We need to look for, you know, new and creative ways to make Mamaroneck more affordable. You know, like Dan said, we could, you know, need to really take a good look at our zoning laws. We can't stop development, but we can sure as heck make it that, you know, if you're going to build here, it's going to be affordable. We could do that in so many ways. You know, that's what I'm looking forward to doing, being fiscally responsible. I mean, for too long, everything in this village has been an emergency. Everything is done last minute by emergency declaration. You know, we had a village manager that really spent money like it was growing on a tree in front of Village Hall, and we're paying for that now. We need to, you know, set up projects, make sure we can finance them, have a long-term plan for them, and just really, you know, be responsible with our tax dollars. We need, you know, procurement, how we bid, how we send things out for bid. You know, we need to make sure we do that. And like Dan said, you know, we're getting a new village manager, new assistant village manager. We need to make sure that those people, you know, have the best opportunity and know what they're doing to get us into a better position than we are today.
Right, they're really jumping in the hot seat right away. I mean, and I appreciated your comment, Dan, about when people have had flooding again and again and again, and we have monies coming in from various sources for the environment and for flooding. It's hard to hear that you might not be the first neighborhood to get some support, and that can be a hard message to hear. But presenting a plan where that sequenced approach could be shared, that's part of the transparency thing I think you talk about. But again, the new staffing for the village is important. They're key roles, and they're a fairly sizable portion of our budget. I mean, back to the budget issues. So thank you all for your ideas. I'm sure people are going to be excited to get to know you. Again, I want to repeat that while this is an uncontested race, it is still an election. I think we all in the room believe in voting with every fiber of our being. So the election is November 5th, Tuesday, like usual, first Tuesday of the month in November. And there are local, state, and federal elections, including one for president and vice president. So we hope you all get out and vote. Early voting is October 22nd through November 3rd.
26th.
26th, sorry. Thanks for that correction. And we really encourage you to get out to vote. And there are various other ways to learn about these three fine people, including the Village of Mamaroneck Dems Facebook page, and they'll be continuing with your listening tour, I presume.
Yes.
Will.
Absolutely.
So, and there are ways to reach out to each of you individually, which I think people will appreciate. But thanks for listening, and thanks for this opportunity to introduce the three of you to the listeners and viewers today.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kate.
Kate.
Okay, thanks.